Without a doubt, the star politician of last year was a woman in her very first term in federal parliament. The person who almost single-handedly made sure Labor's plan for a voice, this racial division of Australia, was defeated. She's Jacinta Nampijinpa-Price, of course, of the Nationals. And without her, I doubt the Liberals would have had the guts to oppose the voice and save the country. So what next for Price, who's now Shadow Minister for Indigenous Australians? Well, yesterday she spoke at the Canberra protests against all these wind farms, these awful wind farms being built around the country, destroying our landscape. And she joins me now. Jacinta Nampijinpa-Price, thank you so much for your time. Look, before I go to the bigger picture of politics here and your future, a question about your portfolio. The Productivity Commission has just said we aren't going to get better living standards for Aboriginal Australians until governments stop thinking that they know best and give Aboriginal people more power to make their own decisions. Is that really the answer?
Look, we all know it's not really the answer. We all know that throwing money at a problem certainly isn't the answer. The answer is we need an audit, which is what we've been calling for over and over again. But just to simply suggest that a group of Australians based on their racial ethnicity know what's best for that particular racial ethnicity, and determining that organisations who are run by majority of people with that ethnicity be given all the money and the responsibility doesn't actually mean it will produce any outcomes. And we're seeing that over again. And we're seeing more and more, if we look at the Northern Territory and what's happened with the Northern Australian Aboriginal Justice Association, they're in turmoil, and even staff have been asking for a complete overhaul of the board. It's leaving Aboriginal people without legal representation and a backlog, and they're in a crisis. So the Productivity Commission can make all the suggestions they want, but it is such that we should stop treating Australians on the basis of race and start treating the need and supporting those programs that are actually providing outcomes, and starting with an audit to determine who's doing the right thing and who isn't.
I've got two problems. I'm all in favour of small government and government getting off people's back, but I have to say two problems with its magic cure. One is, for instance, and these are both issues that I feel strongly about, that would make a difference, make children go to school. You don't actually need to give communities the power to make children go to school. Parents should be doing that themselves, and they don't need government fiat. They can get together, etc. And I don't see that happening enough. And on the other issue, a bit related, you got, for instance, the First People's Assembly in Victoria calling for fewer children removed from families where they are, in my view, in danger. And I think the government's got to be able to say, no, they are in danger, and we're not going to pander to this, these calls for let's remove fewer of them.
Yeah, look, that is exactly right. And it's something that I've been arguing for, is that I believe, Indigenous children are Australian citizens. They deserve to have their human rights upheld just like any other kids in this country, not treated differently because of their race. But unfortunately, we've got an ideological child protection system in place that favours this concept of country and culture over their human rights to live a dignified life where they have education, where their health is taken care of, where the people that are the responsible adults in their households are actually loving them and caring for them. And I don't care who's going to provide that for them, what their racial background is, but we need to move away from this idea that it can only be provided by Aboriginal families.
See, there's a real theme in what you're saying, and it was what you were saying last year too. This racial separatism is just not working. It's dividing us. It's just ridiculous. But, here's the tension, because you are the Shadow Minister for Indigenous Australians, and you're talking about social welfare. That should be part of the social security portfolio. There should not be two separate things. And personally, I would love to see you be the Shadow Minister for both, and eventually the Minister for both. For one, because they have to be mainstreamed, and two, I hate Aboriginal politicians or politicians with Aboriginal ancestry being pigeonholed as only good for Aboriginal portfolios.
Yeah, look, that's exactly right. It occurs across the board, obviously, because again, that's how the ideologues like to frame everything in terms of race. I mean, I've always said that eventually what success would look like was there to not actually be a separate portfolio for Indigenous Australians, because then everybody would be treated as equal in that regard, and we would be serving Australians on the basis of need as opposed to on race. And this is something that the politicians, that some of the bureaucrats, the ideologues have not figured out yet, that is what equality looks like. If we focus on the issue, and we focus on problem solving in that regard, as opposed to, we've got to deal with Indigenous people differently because somehow we're different. No, we are Australian citizens, and that is how we have to execute coming about with the solutions for these tough issues.
Well, I hope in government you are in charge of both portfolios and merge them into one. That needs to be done, and good luck to you in that battle. But just in the immediate year ahead, right, we're starting a new year. Parliament's just started sitting for the first time this week. What do you see the big battles being that just this year alone?
Well, certainly in my portfolio, I'll be continuing to call for an inquiry, working very closely with my colleague, Senator Kerryn Little, to push this government to hold that inquiry that needs to be had into the spending on Indigenous issues. We're going to continue to call for a Royal Commission into sexual abuse in Indigenous communities of Indigenous children. And of course, more broadly, I was just out on the lawn with the protesters who are pushing against renewables, farmers, landholders, those in regional Australia, who want to see an end to this renewables push, which is basically damaging our environment. And aside from that, not providing efficient energy, reliable energy to the Australian people, and is pushing up the cost of living crisis that we're currently living with. But, there's a raft of many different issues going forward. I'd like to see more opportunity in the Northern Territory. I'm absolutely behind Peter Dutton when he's calling for the Environmental Defenders Office to be defunded. We need to do away with this activism and lawfare by activists, which is across the board. I'd like to see across many portfolios, in fact, do away with the waste and the ideology and a focus to be put on common sense approaches to many different measures going forward. And also with that and with the renewables issue, we are certainly going to continue to push for ways forward in terms of nuclear and have those robust debates about that.
I'm loving hearing you talk outside your portfolio. I'd hate for you to be pigeonholed away when you were such a force last year. Jacinta Nampijinpa-Price, great to talk to you again. Thank you.
You too, Andrew. Thank you.